2024 is the year of the dragon, an auspicious year in the Chinese zodiac cycle that usually sees more parents having more babies. In the last two dragon years, that be 2012 and 2000, the number of newborns both increased by 10 and 15% respectively compared to the year before. However, this year so far, Taiwan's population has been showing negative growth for 8 consecutive months, and only 9 months have passed. In fact, Taiwan's population growth has slowed significantly since 2001 and has been recording negative population growth since 2020, with the National Development Council estimating that by 2070, Taiwan's population is going to drop by one-third, from 23 million to 15 million people, with nearly half being elderly individuals above the age of 65. In this episode, we aim to discover the reason for Taiwan's low birth rate and what are some possible solutions on the horizon. I'm your host, Joey Chou, and this is Beyond the Reefs. You're listening to Beyond the Reefs, a show produced by Radio Taiwan International. Here we talk about socioeconomic issues that are faced by Taiwan and their broader impact around the world, beyond the reefs of this island nation. In many countries with advanced economies and industrialization, both fertility and birth rates have declined so much that they can no longer secure generation replacement. As we know, it takes 2 parents to reproduce, which means that if a couple has fewer than 2 kids, they won't replace themselves and the country's population is bound to decrease. But more immediately, we'll see more senior citizens than their working age counterparts. This phenomenon is called a super-aged society, where more than 20% of a country's population is over 65 years old. Japan, for example, has long been a super-aged society. After the 2010s, the US, Canada, and many European countries have joined its ranks. Taiwan is projected to hit the same mark in 2025. But what is the big deal? Why are we so worried about a decreasing and aging population? The first reason being labor force shortage. A shrinking pool of young workers can lead to low productivity, reduced economic growth, and fewer people paying taxes and funding the welfare program, which can put a strain on the healthcare and pension systems. The government will be forced to either make cuts in services or increase taxes, or both. Finally, low birth rates also means smaller family sizes, which can lead to swift changes in traditions, values, and social norms. And in a country that has more elderly people who are usually more conservative, this could create polarizing political views and animosity amongst people, which is a phenomenon long observed in Japan. So the number of newborns is at a historic low. In the latest reports from the Central Intelligence Agency, Taiwan's birth rate is near the bottom of a list of 227 countries in the world, while Taiwan's fertility rate is last. Birth rate measures the number of births compared to any given population in a year, and fertility rate is the average number of children women are having in their lifetime. Taiwan being at the bottom of both lists means that women in Taiwan are having fewer children while the population is decreasing rapidly. But it's not just Taiwan that's trailing in both birth rate and fertility rate. Many of our close Asian neighbors, such as Hong Kong, Singapore, South Korea, and Japan, are also occupying the low end of both lists.
For most of history, people had lots of children, which made financial sense because kids could work in the fields and look after their parents in old age. But as societies have grown richer, there has been a reduction in procreation.
We've seen a change in why people have children and the economic incentives to having children. So as we have more countries offering pensions, older adults are less reliant on their adult children to provide for them in their older years. And at the same time, we see more women getting higher levels of education, being employed. We also see a change in attitudes, a move towards secularization, so less importance of religion, a rise in feminism, a rise in women's rights. And childhood extends because we need to educate our children longer. So the costs of raising children go up.
And kids can be costly. The costs start even before birth. Fertility treatment, for those who need it, is expensive. And in some countries, giving birth in a hospital can cost thousands of dollars. Then there's food, clothes, nappies, toys, baby carriers, and prams. The Economist has calculated that a typical American family can expect to spend almost $300,000 raising a child to the age of 17. Factor in college tuition, and it rises to over $400,000.
In Hong Kong, population decrease is generally recognized as the result of an outflow of young people, high cost of childcare and shelter, like renting and buying houses. In South Korea, Japan, and Singapore, it's said to be caused by high cost of shelter and extremely long work hours, with Singapore being in the top 5 of the most overworked cities in the world. Here in Taiwan, pretty much the same tune. Since the year 2000, Taiwan's GDP has grown by 120%. That's more than doubled. With higher GDP usually comes higher cost of goods and services. But the average wage growth has only increased by 4%. The exponential increase in house prices can also be felt in most major metropolitan areas. You generally need a roof over your head if you want to have kids, and it costs a lot to either buy or rent in cities like Hong Kong, Seoul, Singapore, or Taipei. For a little perspective, it's generally recommended as financial advice that if you want to buy a house, the home price should be around 3 to 5 times that of your annual income. For example, if you make $100,000 a year, you should be buying houses priced around $300,000 to $500,000. That way you're not taking on too much debt and you'll have some money left for a decent living after you make your mortgage payment each month. The 3 to 5 times is what we call house price to annual income ratio. But in some of the most expensive cities in the world, that ratio is much higher for local residents. For New York, it's 11 times. Vancouver, 12, Sydney, 13, and Hong Kong, being the most expensive city to find shelter in the world, is at 18.8. In other words, for the average income earners, if you don't eat, don't drink, or shop, it will take you about 18.8 years to save up enough money to buy a house in Hong Kong. That number is equally high in Seoul, which is 15.2, Singapore, 13.7, and here in Taipei, 15.5. But if you're thinking, okay, but no one really buys a house with cash outright. They get a mortgage and pay 20% down payment. Well, that's the main reason why couples are getting married later. It's because without generational wealth, you'd likely have to spend years saving up for that 20% down payment. That is, if you decide to get married or have babies at all. The latest survey shows that the percentage of unmarried Taiwanese people between ages 25 to 44 increased from 26% in the year 2000 to 49% in 2023. Half of what we call the marriageable age group isn't even considering it. Difficult economic conditions are making young people think twice about getting married, let alone having kids. In 2000, the average age for first marriages in Taiwan was around 30 years old for males and 20 years old for females. In 2023, that average has been delayed to 32-year-olds for men and 30 for women. But that's the national average. In Taipei, the capital city and economic center of Taiwan, the ages for first marriages are highest. Men at 34 years old, while women at 32. With young people getting married later and first-time parents getting older, there is an inescapable biological concern with infertility. It's getting harder for couples to get pregnant. For this, we spoke with Dr. Tsai at Taipei City's Cathay General Hospital about some of the difficulties older couples are facing with childbearing.
My name is Cleo Tsai. Mostly people know me as Dr. Tsai. That's the only female Dr. Tsai at Cathay General Hospital in Taipei City. On average, my day-to-day responsibilities include ultrasounds for fetal anatomy or growth ultrasounds. I do outpatient clinics and I do surgery as well, which includes gynecology and obstetrics both. We also deliveries such as natural deliveries and also C-section. The maternal age for the first child is going up a little bit. Mostly right now, I see the age of the moms with the first babies are around like maybe 32 to 34 or 35 maybe. For advanced maternal age, we set the limit as 35 years old. But when you become pregnant at 34 and you deliver at 35, that's also considered as advanced maternal age, which will increase the infertility rate because the egg quality will not be as well, and also the egg amount will be very, very reduced. If you do become pregnant at advanced maternal age, a lot of things can go wrong, such as the Down syndrome, any other kind of chromosomal abnormalities, or there's like microdeletions, especially like the George syndrome or like Prader-Willi, Angelman syndrome, preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, etc. Also, there may be higher risk of like spontaneous abortion, preterm labor, or prolonged labor. We have to start from the birth rate right now. So previously, like maybe 10 years ago, birth rates like maybe 30 to 40,000 a year. However, in recent years, the birth rate has dropped so much that the government is starting to, be aware of the situation. So like in previous maybe 10 to 20 years, there has been probably 300 to 400,000 births a year. But in recent years, the birth rate has dropped a lot, especially in 2022. We thought that the birth rate has reached a really, really low point, which is 148,000, I believe, births per year. But in 2023, in just this past year, it even dipped below that. It has been around like 130,000 a year only, which means that a lot of people are going out of business, like colleges and even like daycare centers and also nannies. So there's not enough kids to be going to these facilities. So I think the government is starting to be aware of the situation, and the government is trying to subsidize for some IVF procedures so that more people will try to deliver. So in the past, we've seen patients come in around like maybe 28 or 30. But in recent years, we've noted that the trend has been the maternal age for the first child is going up a little bit. So mostly right now, I see the age of the moms with the first babies are around like maybe actually 32 to 34 or 35 maybe. And also, this is for normal patients. For some patients who's received previous surgery for something like a chocolate cyst or like a dermoid cyst, sometimes the previous surgery can cause some ovarian reserve reduction, which means that in the future they may have a little compensation of the decreased ovarian reserve. So we might look into that with a blood draw of something called an AMH, an anti-Müllerian hormone that can determine the ovarian reserve. So we can actually predict if the patient will be close to infertility. So we can use this marker to predict, to see if the patient will have to be try to get pregnant earlier. For infertile patients under 40, under no protection, and the couple has not been pregnant in half a year to a year, then we will start IVF protocols. And the government will subsidize successful IVF, 100,000 Taiwanese dollars at most. So if the patient tried and failed, they will also subsidize, but not as much. And it also depends if it's your first try, second try, or third try. So we do have a couple prenatal checkups that are subsidized. So first of all, there's a new $8,000 taxi fee that's subsidized for the whole pregnancy checkup. After receiving the mom handbook, then we can ask the prenatal care facility to help you apply for this $8,000. So we have 10 times of prenatal care, the prenatal checkup. So which means that the registration fee to go to the hospital is very reduced. Such as my hospital, like it's a private hospital and it's a medical center. The registration fee is a little bit higher than the usual clinic. So I'm gonna say around like maybe for like every visit should be at least like 400 to 500 Taiwanese dollars. However, with booklet and you're using a prenatal checkup, the registration fee will be reduced to like about 150 Taiwanese dollars. And okay, second one is the Down syndrome checkup. I believe, a $2,000 subsidy. However, every hospital and clinic has different prices on this checkup. So there will be a portion of the fees that we will have to pay, maybe like around 1,000 or something. So that would be the pre-pregnancy part. That would be the IVF part. And after the pregnancy, there will be also some subsidies for 0 to 6 years old. So it depends on also if you send your baby to a daycare center, or if you look for a nanny, like an in-house nanny, or like if you send the baby to the nanny's house for care. It also depends on which city you live in. Some cities have very, very good, subsidies. For example, for Taipei City, each family will be able to receive a $5,000 subsidy for a month. And also, if you send the baby to a nanny's house, or if the nannies or the daycare center has signed a contract with the government, you will also receive a second subsidy, maybe around like $8,000, I believe.
IVF subsidies are only for low to middle income families and women under 45 years of age. But money is one thing. The physical and psychological stress on the mother is another. And childcare doesn't stop at fertility centers. Raising a child is a tall order for any average income family. The Taiwanese government is offering a lot of subsidies for childcare between 0 to 6 years old. There is a healthcare allowance if you or your parents or grandparents have time to care for them at home. Since most parents are both working these days, childcare vouchers are also available to offset the costs of childcare services. And starting in 2023, these vouchers are available to everyone, including those with higher incomes. Parents who can reach an agreement with their employers can take a temporary leave up to 6 months, while the Ministry of Labor subsidizes 80% of your salary. There are tax credits or deductions and support for low-income families, yet the birth rate remains low in Taiwan.
So right now, a lot of my same age colleagues are actually also discussing this question as well. Although the fertility window is still there, but more people are choosing a later time to become pregnant. In our generation, I think women are intellectual. I think very independent, and for their own self, they want to live life a little bit, travel, and maybe finish everything that on their checklist before they settle down and have a family and children, which will increase the infertility rate. So in the next couple of years, what I would suggest is maybe considering subsidizing for, oocyte. Some cities are already starting this for oocyte preservation, which means egg freezing.
Unfortunately, oocyte cryopreservation has not yet been made available to single women, nor are there any subsidies for artificial insemination for single women. In October, National Development Council Minister Liu Jingqing was invited to a meeting hosted by the legislature's Economic Committee, where he informed government officials that he intends to propose a new bill expanding access to artificial insemination. According to Liu, a survey conducted by the NDC found that the main reason women cite for not having children is inability to find a suitable marriage partner. The results also show that the pressure of raising children and taking care of aging parents simultaneously also poses a significant obstacle. To this end, proposing a new bill that will allow unmarried women to undergo artificial insemination and oocyte preservation will benefit those who have yet to find suitable marriage partners but would like to retain their biological abilities to have children. He proposes giving priority for public housing to unmarried couples, and added that there have been internal discussions about raising the childcare subsidy to approximately $400. But as a parent myself, I think the most important factor to influence one's decision to have children or not is support from family and from a spouse who is committed 100% to the effort. Aside from those who really love children, why would you really want to take a dent to your living quality by having children, government subsidy or not? And not to mention the lack of sleep, the stress of disciplining your children, the pressure of your children's performances in school. That's a lot of sacrifices. Perhaps aside from the subsidies, it is more important to provide a safe and friendly environment for women to want to have children. Coming up next week, we want to delve into some of Taiwan's leading industries, starting with semiconductor. I'm Joey Chou, and you have been listening to Beyond the Reefs.